Part 38. I Can See the Laws of Things. Author, Yitiao Xuanhuan. Chapter 371. Lin returned to the tavern again. Yi Zhan had just finished settling the accounts and was about to leave when suddenly there was a fluctuation in the space and Lin An's figure emerged. Yi Zhan couldn't help but be stunned. "Lord Emperor Lin, you." Lin looked indifferent and said, "Your matter has been resolved." Yi Zhan was stunned for a moment, and his expression changed slightly. "You mean?" Lin An nodded. "Yu Xiao is dead." Yi Zhan couldn't help but take a breath. Yu Xiao, who was at the same level as him, died in just a cup of tea. Yi Zhan couldn't help but feel a chill running down his spine. Doesn't this mean that it would take less than a cup of tea to deal with Yi Zhan? If he knew that Lin An's action was just a thought and fleeting, I don't know how Yi Zhan would feel. However, a few days ago, Lin An was able to crush even 3 giants when they joined forces, and he was able to quickly deal with Yu Xiao. It was indeed not difficult to think about it. Thinking of this, Yi Zhan felt a little relieved, and clasped his fists respectfully. "Master Lin Di has extraordinary skills, I admire him." Lin An smiled half-heartedly. When did Yi Zhan learn to flatter him? After sitting down, Lin took another sip of the unfinished wine, which tasted spicy in his throat. Lin An was holding the cup with a deep look in his eyes. After a while, he suddenly said something shocking again. "I am ready to let all mankind awaken the will of life." Yi Zhan couldn't help but be startled. "All human beings? How is this possible?" Lin's expression remained unchanged. "It's okay if I say yes." Yi Zhan's expression suddenly changed. "Lord Lin Di, you mean, you can make ordinary people awaken the will of life?" Lin nodded lightly. Yi Zhan's eyes suddenly became as if he were looking at a monster. "It is impossible for an ordinary person to awaken his life will, let alone awaken all mankind." Swallowing secretly, Yi Zhan lowered his head and drank several sips of wine. It took a long time before he regained consciousness. "Lord Emperor Lin, this matter is really shocking. Once it spreads, it will definitely cause quite a storm. This is a change for the entire human race, and it involves too many things." Having said this, Yi Zhan's expression softened slightly. "But those twists and turns don't matter to you, Mr. Lin Di. From the perspective of the entire human race, this is really a good thing." Lin An nodded, a hint of approval flashed in his eyes. "This is why I chose you. You can distinguish the important from the big issues. It's just that your strength is not enough, so work harder." Yi Zhan couldn't help but smile bitterly, knowing that Lin An wanted him to be promoted to the God Emperor. But that's the God Emperor. Except for Lin, no one can achieve it. Arrange this matter as soon as possible. I will stay here for a while. If you have any resistance, just tell me. I know that you must be more than just assassinated in this position, but in this matter, this emperor will put it this way: whoever dares to stand up and challenge me will be killed by this emperor." Speaking of this, Lin An's eyes flashed with a stern look, which made Yi Zhan's heart tremble. "Emperor Lin, this is serious. Now Emperor Lin is far ahead of all human beings. When Emperor Lin is angry, who can stop him?" Yi Zhan clasped his fists heavily and accepted the order, and the two left. At this moment, a storm was sweeping through the outside world. Yu Xiao's aura disappeared. The Yuxian tribe, as one of the largest tribes, has many outstanding people, including even a pair of demigods from the Yuxian tribe. At this moment, Yu Xiao's younger brother Yu Yu looked sad and was sitting in the palace sadly. Many tribesmen felt the disappearance of Yu Xiao's aura. They even heard Lin An's thunderous voice asking for guilt before. But they had no choice, because that was Emperor Lin. They all knew about Yu Xiao's move, but no one stopped him because they felt that Emperor Lin would not take action without any scruples. After all, he was the emperor of the human race. But the facts proved that they were wrong. They underestimated Yi Zhan's position in Lin An's heart. This incident was like a signal that spread rapidly in the agreed place in a short period of time, like a stone that stirred up 1,000 waves. Everyone began to realize a problem, fight, and not move. And while this matter was fermenting crazily, another piece of bombshell news, like the landing of a nuclear bomb, set off an unprecedented storm in the entire Promised Land. Lin En, I want to help all mankind awaken the will of life, all mankind. What kind of concept is this? Lin En wants to save thousands of ordinary people from the fire and water, and it can even be said to give them more hope of life. But for some tribes and some complicated forces, this kind of thing may not be a good thing. The intricate forces are spread all over, hiding chains of interests that ordinary people can't imagine. The scope of this matter is too huge. Some people are happy and some are sad, various thoughts arise in people's hearts, and many people weigh the pros and cons in their hearts. Some people look at the sky from time to time and sigh secretly in their hearts. An undercurrent is already quietly surging, and a storm is coming to this promised place. And in places that ordinary people can't see, some extraordinary characters gather in some obscure places one after another, and there are even many people at the level of patriarchs. At this moment, Lin En was paying money at the front desk of an inn, and then walked upstairs with the key. Pialing Inn is a very tasteful inn. A 3-story building with carved railings and jade inlays. Several cherry trees in front of the door are arranged in rows. When the breeze blows, a few cherry blossoms will fall with the wind, and a sparse cherry blossom rain will fall. In front of the window, Lin En looked down at the street below. His face could not show joy or anger, but his eyes were deep. The promised place was about to fall into a storm. In this storm, many people might die, and the grudges might be passed down for many years. Lin En knew all this. However, since ancient times, when there has been a change, has there been no bloody storm? The universe is unknown, and he has no idea what will happen in the future. This is all he can do. As for those obstacles, Lin En stood alone in front of the window, his face was calm, but his momentum was getting more and more fierce. Maybe this time, he would kill a lot. 2 days passed quietly. In these 2 days, Lin En either sat in the inn to meditate, or went to the tavern to sit, drink a few glasses of soju, and bathe in the sunset. The waiter at the tavern already knew Lin En's appearance, and finally discovered Lin En's identity. Lin En's face was exactly the same as the huge Dharma image in the sky. Lin En was kind and easygoing, but upon closer inspection, one could see a hint of indifference in his eyes. That was a transcendent state that had experienced all kinds of things. I can see the laws of things. Author, Yitiao Xuanhuan. Chapter 372. Lin didn't know when he started to change. Different from the influence of the eye of law last time, under the influence of the eye of law, there is a kind of ruthless indifference, which is the lack of human nature. But now, Lin An's body was filled with an indescribable indifference. This is a kind of calm state of mind. Perhaps, this change began during the 3,000 years of dream. He is becoming more and more like the great emperor of the human race. On this day, Lin An finished her retreat and stood in front of the window in trance. Suddenly she noticed that the flow of people below the inn seemed to have suddenly increased. Lin An didn't pay too much attention, thinking that there might be some commotion below. However, as time passed, Lin found that there were more and more people, so many that the streets below were almost overflowing. Lin An's expression remained unchanged, but his eyes fluctuated slightly. It seems that someone can't bear it any longer. The thoughts spread out, and in just one breath, Lin An discovered 5 obscure figures. Some of them are hidden in the inn, some in the shop opposite the inn, and some on the street. The same thing is that all the attention of these figures is on Lin An. Lin An was surprised for a moment, and then chuckled twice as if he was somewhat self-deprecating. I'm really relaxed. I don't know when, He was targeted. He is a giant of the divine level, and now he is temporarily living in the human world, and he is not even aware that he is being targeted. Thoughts flashed through his mind, and Lin became a little more alert. Now that the earth has no rivals, Lin En has unconsciously relaxed his vigilance. Today's little farce has served as a wake-up call for him. Soon, the crowd below became crowded, and a special flow of people gradually poured into the street. They formed a square formation, dozens of people standing together, holding up a huge piece of white paper, and pressed in mightily. Lin En glanced at it and saw that these people were not weak in cultivation, and some of them were even close to the God Emperor. Demigods are patriarch-level figures in their respective tribes. At this moment, these patriarch-level figures are all gathered together. Some of their eyes were excited, some seemed a little uneasy, and some even looked tragic. Only the heads of the group had a look of determination to move forward. Lin En looked at the white paper and saw shocking bloody writing on the big piece of paper. I respectfully request Emperor Lin to take back my life. These big blood-red characters are in the middle, and around them are small blood-red characters, which are clearly the names of people. At a glance, I am afraid there are hundreds of them. They are exactly the same, whether it is these names or the big characters in the middle, they are all written in blood. Soon, they were holding up this huge blood book and approaching it, followed by countless people watching the excitement. The crowd was like a sea, vast and boundless. Has Mr. Linde made any decision? You don't even know this? Lord Linde wants to help all mankind awaken the will of life. I recognize them. They are all tribal leaders and elders. All 8 major tribes are here. With so many tribes joining together to oppose it, can Mr. Linde still help all mankind? Various voices of discussion were buzzing and noisy below, and Lin's will swept through it, sifting through it for useful information. The so-called 8 major tribes are the 8 most powerful tribes among humans on Earth. Except for the Xuanhuan tribe who fought in the war, all the other 7 major tribes came. The crowd was huge, and after a long time, the huge signed blood letter stopped in front of Pialing Inn. At the same time, a deafening shout suddenly resounded throughout the place. More than 100 tribes signed a blood letter, respectfully requesting Lord Lin to show up and take back his life. Dozens of people were holding the blood book, and more people were surrounding them. At this moment, they all shouted out in unison. They seemed to be excited, and many of them had faces filled with indignation, as if they had been unfairly wronged, and they roared in unison at this moment. Lin En looked at the crowd below, and after a moment, he took a step forward and appeared above the crowd. His eyes faintly scanned the crowd below. Lin En's face was calm, neither sad nor happy. Are you doing this because you want to force this emperor to submit? The crowd below fell silent for a moment, and at this moment, Yu took a few steps forward and spoke loudly, Your Majesty Lin, your words are serious. We are co-signing. We just want to let Mr. Lin know where the public opinion is. I hope that Mr. Lin can take into account the wishes of the human race. Come on, take back your life. Lin En's will swept through and he soon discovered where Yi Zhan was. At this moment, he was being stared at by 3 demigods and was still confined to his home. There was something strange in Lin En's eyes, and she felt that the scene was quite familiar. Is this considered forced to have a baby? Lin En laughed at himself inwardly, his pale eyes scanning Yu below. Yu Xiao's younger brother Yu, I see you opening your mouth to speak out about public opinion and shutting up on the human race. I would like to ask you, what qualifications do you have to speak on behalf of public opinion? Yu Xiao suddenly looked calm. Lord Emperor Lin, I have received appeals from many people, hoping that we can persuade Lord Lin to take back his life. Lin En's voice was filled with coldness. Did you receive it? If people have demands, they should be directed to Deputy Commander Yi Zhan. Who do you think you are? Yu's face suddenly darkened, and he said in a rather ugly voice, the Deputy Commander-in-Chief has many things to do every day, and he is still busy at home until now. He has no time to pay attention to people's appeals. Naturally, such chores will be handled by the people below. That is to say, you didn't go through any trial at all in this matter. This was your spontaneous behavior. Lin En's expression remained unchanged, but his tone gradually became impatient. Yu was quite imposing. The deputy commander has no time to take care of these trivial matters of ours, so there is no need to ask the deputy commander for instructions on this matter. Lin En nodded, then looked at the people behind Yu. What about you? Are you here with him to force this emperor to take back his order? The faces of the people behind him changed slightly, as if they heard something bad, but they still said, Lord Emperor Lin, we are all here to convey the will of the people. Lin En couldn't help laughing. The will of the people? What a will of the people! You all have great courage and are all people who do great things. I, Emperor Lin, am almost moved by you. Yu's face changed a little, and he heard the hidden meaning of this remark. At this moment, he couldn't help but speak again. Lord Emperor Lin, this matter is what the people want. I hope Lord Emperor Lin will help you. Lin En's face calmed down, but a hint of coldness appeared in his eyes. You keep talking about the will of the people, but you tell me what the will of the people is. I want to let them awaken their fate, but you tell me they don't want to. Is this what you call the will of the people? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I can see the laws of things. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 373. Yu's face changed a little when he heard this, and his heart tightened slightly, but his face was pretending to be calm. What Mr. Linde said is true. Perhaps Mr. Linde doesn't believe it. The reason is still unknown, but this is the fact and this is what public opinion points to. Having said this, another person soon stood up behind him. Everything Master Yu said is true. I hope Master Lin can tell the truth. I hope Lord Lin will learn from this. The next second, hundreds of people behind him spoke again in unison, their voices deafening. Lin En took a breath. If there were any uninformed people here, they might really think that this was the real public opinion. Even those who are slightly weak-minded may have their minds shaken at this moment, thinking whether there is really something else hidden. Can we withdraw our orders for the time being to investigate? And if this order is once withdrawn and it is wanted to be issued again, it will not be a temporary matter. Thoughts flashed through. Lin's eyes calmed down again, and there was a half-smile on his face. Okay, don't be pretentious here. I tell you that you are running to me so eagerly just because my decision will affect your interests to a great extent. Yu's expression suddenly changed. He didn't expect that Lin En would speak so nakedly. Lin En kept talking. Once ordinary people have awakened to the will of life, those servants you have been treating so arrogantly will no longer be bullied by you or at your mercy like before. Even a few years later, people who you have bullied will appear out of nowhere, come to you with full of hatred, and want to slap your heads in pieces. You are so deliberate and even united with hundreds of blood books to come here. The so-called public sentiment is just nonsense. The real reason is that you are afraid. Lin En's voice was not concealed at all and spread in all directions. For a moment, countless people couldn't help but change their expressions. Oh my God! So that's why they did it? No wonder they started such a big battle, and they must stop Mr. Linde. These sanctimonious guys really have bad intentions. Lord Linde must not let them succeed. The crowd's discussion echoed endlessly, like a sudden surge of tide. Many passers-by who had no idea what they were talking about suddenly seemed to realize it, and immediately began to curse these clan leaders and elders, wishing they could even greet 8 generations of their ancestors. Under Emperor Lin, the people from Beibu looked pale, and the leader Yu looked even more gloomy. What Mr. Linde said is a bit exaggerated. What we and the Beibu people did are just what the people think. What Mr. Lin said has no evidence at all, let alone any reason. I am really unjust. Yu felt heartbroken, but his eyes were filled with coldness. Lin An's face showed no emotion at all, but his words were sharper. Exaggerating? What I said is not a 10,000th of what you think. You all have advanced cultivation, either as clan leaders or elders. With such status, can your words represent the people's hearts? Is this the emperor's blindness, or is it you? There is a ball of filth on your head to discuss this emperor. Yu's face suddenly turned ferocious. No matter what Emperor Lin thinks, today we are here with public opinion. This matter is a fact. Does Emperor Lin want to go against the will of the people of the world? There was disdain in Lin An's eyes. You are so shameless and dare to talk about the people's hearts. As someone like you don't think about how to speed up the development of mankind, but you only think about your own petty profits. You have such a corrupt personality, but you still dare to lick your face and run in front of me and bark. I think that I am the king of the world, but I have never seen anyone as shameless as you. Yu's face turned black and blue, and the faces of the hundreds of people behind him turned red and white. Obviously they couldn't hold back their dignity. Master Lin is very clever and eloquent. I can't wait. If you don't do it, get out of here. You can't even understand what you're saying. What's the use of your mouth? Are you still standing in front of me, waiting for me to slap your yellow teeth away, Lin En? He opened his mouth and cursed loudly, but Yu couldn't even finish his words. Yu almost gritted his yellow teeth. Thinking of the purpose of coming here, he had to bite the bullet and speak. No matter how sharp Mr. Lin's words are, it can't change the purpose of our coming here. The people's will is the general trend. Rule and Emperor Lin refused to change, so we had to plead again until Lord Lin agreed. Lin En couldn't help but frown, and for the first time, a little displeasure flashed in his eyes. He has experienced a lot, and although he can see through the reason at a glance, he has never experienced such a scene as being forced into the palace, so his interest is higher today. But play is play, and if these people don't stop playing, they are a bit ungrateful. At this moment, Lin En felt a little impatient and said, "This emperor has given you enough face today, so don't be ignorant. In the past, I was stained with blood and killed countless aliens. The current situation is turbulent and the future is uncertain. I don't want to cause bloodshed in the human race, but you should understand that I am just unwilling, not unable. The little tricks you did today are quite interesting. Now, the game is over and you can get out." The voice was full of coldness. Lin En's expression returned to calmness, and his eyes became still water. But the faces of the people under Lin En changed drastically, and some of them even broke out in cold sweat. Lin En's words were a warning, and even more of a threat. Lin En was tired of playing this game. If they continued, they might die. Below, Yu bowed with a pale face. Could it be that Lord Lin can still kill people in my human race in public? Lin En's mouth showed a trace of mockery. Why, you want to try? At this point, Lin En's eyes showed a hint of amusement. Before, the one called Yu Xiao was your brother. This person assassinated the deputy commander Yi Zhan a few days ago. This is not only a heinous crime, but also a challenge to me, Emperor Lin. Your brother has paid the price of challenging me and died quietly. Now, you also want to try. When these words came out, they immediately set off a wave of waves. Many people cast their eyes on Yu, some worried and some expectant. At this moment, Yu's nails dug deep into his palms, his eyes were hysterical, and his face was even more ferocious. Yu believes that he is innocent. If Lord Lin dares to kill innocent people, he will definitely be branded as a cruel tyrant. I can see the laws of things. Author, Yitiao Xuanhuan. Chapter 374. The divine desolation is already so powerful, so what level of power should the eternal soul above the divine desolation be? Muttering to himself, Lin lowered his head and pondered, and couldn't help but yearn for the gods above. Today, Lin An's sharp words and the disappearance of a human life were like a sudden shock, and it quickly spread towards the entire promised land. During the day, many of Lin An's words were mixed with the power of cultivation. Without saying a word, they could travel across the world, but they could also spread to very far away places. As a result, people from far away curiously asked about the source of the sound during the day, which intensified the spread of the news. What a storm! Immediately afterwards, there was another piece of breaking news. Deputy Commander Yi Zhan had begun arranging the specific matters for the awakening of the life wheel. The awakening ceremony will be held in the Emperor Tian Palace in 3 days. Emperor Tian Palace, a newly named huge palace. This place is located in the center of the entire Promised Land, with a height of dozens of meters, making it the tallest building in the entire Promised Land. It is shaped like a sword, with a sword tip on the top, slender and straight, like a sharp sword rising into the sky. The walls of the building are not entirely made of earth, but are made of an unknown translucent material that reflects dazzling light under the light. This is the Emperor Tiangong specially built for Lin En. Lin En didn't know about this at first. After learning that Yazan had done it privately, Lin En was a little depressed. Although this behavior was a bit public, Yazan had good intentions, and the Emperor Tiangong Palace had been built. Lin En it was not easy to be harsh on En, so he moved in. It was night, and Lin En stood on the top floor of the Emperor Tiangong. This floor is designed as his private bedroom, and the entire first floor is a bedroom. It is translucent in all directions, and you can see almost the entire Promised Land at a glance. Unfortunately, this material has one-way visibility. You can see the outside from the inside, but you cannot see the inside from the outside. This is clearly the special glass on the outer layer of modern buildings. In front of the huge floor-to-ceiling window, Lin En looked deeply down. The night was as cool as water, and thousands of lights lit up in the city below. Although the construction of this new huge city is far from complete, Yi Zhan has already named it the Promised City. Next to the Emperor Tian Palace is the center of power established in accordance with the war, the Agreement Center. This is a large palace complex, and all decisions and orders will be issued from this Agreement Center in the future. And the Emperor Tiangong has a clear view of the entire Emperor Tiangong. The more he looked at it, the more Lin felt that he had really chosen the right person for Yi Zhan. This is a very smart man, he knows what can and cannot be done, and he can even guess part of Lin's thoughts. If not, how could he have such trust from Lin En? Thinking of this, Lin En raised his hand and waved, and a mysterious wave suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. Time and space were scattered, and the light began to twist and intertwine. After a few breaths passed, a new small world was born in Lin's hands. It seems to be the same small world that changes the flow of time, but upon closer inspection, you can find that the distorted light in this small world is even more exaggerated. The flow of time in this small world is 100 times slower than the outside world. In other words, one night has passed, but in the small world, 100 nights have passed. With something so defiant, even a pig can become a genius. Lin En smiled lightly, then raised his hand and waved, a space crack suddenly appeared, and then sucked the small world into it. Yi Zhan is staying at home and practicing with his eyes closed. Things have been complicated recently, and Lin En is here. Yazan is simply doing things with his head in his head, for fear of making the slightest mistake and making Lin En unhappy. At this time, suddenly in the center of the room, a spatial fluctuation suddenly came. Yi Zhan subconsciously opened his glasses with a vigilant look on his face, and immediately saw a small world floating out. This. Yi Zhan looked hesitant, obviously confused for a moment. This is just for you. The time flow rate of this small world is 100 times. Lin En's voice came from the air immediately, and Yi Zhan couldn't help but his pupils shrank violently, 100 times. Immediately, Yi Zhan's face showed a look of ecstasy. This was even more terrifying than the small worlds outside, and the effect was twice as powerful as those outside. Without hesitation, Yi Zhan jumped off the bed and bowed in the air. Yazan thanks Lord Lin for the gift. Lin An's lips curled up unconsciously. Practice hard. Only when you can truly stand on your own can I really feel at ease with you. Yi Zhan suddenly became serious. Yi Zhan will go all out. Lin An didn't speak anymore. At this moment, his eyes were once again focused on the thousands of lights below, and there seemed to be a trance in his eyes. Time passed by and it was 3 days later. Early on, Lin An's figure appeared below the Emperor Tiangong. And there was already a long queue in front of the Emperor Tiangong. At a glance, there was no end in sight for this long queue. Lin An's mind swept over it, and it turned out that it had already reached the outskirts of the promised city. Lin An couldn't help but smile bitterly. With so many people, they didn't know when they would wake up. Even so, Lin An was determined in her heart. When these awakened humans grow up, they will be the most glorious generation of mankind. The destiny wheels awakened by Lin An are all top-notch destiny wheels. Imagine, a few years later, when the human society is full of strong people, what a terrifying scene it will be. You have very poor qualifications. After weighing the pros and cons, the dark attribute law is more suitable for you. Looking up at the man in front of him, Lin An spoke lightly, with dazzling purple and black gold in his eyes. After the voice fell, Lin An pointed at the man's eyebrows, and then said expressionlessly, "Next. You have decent qualifications, the wind attribute law is more suitable for you, next. You have good qualifications, I can awaken the fire attribute law for you, are you willing to join my Emperor Tiankor?" Lin An looked at the young man in front of him, his eyes lit up and he spoke. "Emperor Tiankor, this is the army that Lin An will establish in the promised place. In the Zhuzhu domain, he has the immortal spirit army and the Zhuzhu guard. In this promised city, there should also be an Emperor Tiankor. He has already thought about it. This Emperor Tian Palace is dozens of meters high. Except for the top 2 floors, there are a total of 31 floors below, all of which are empty and temporarily useless. In this case, the lower area of the Emperor Heaven Palace will be left to the Emperor Heaven Legion. Each floor of the Emperor Heaven Palace is extremely large, so large that it is simply ridiculous. Even if each person has a room, each floor can accommodate about 30 or 40 people. In this way, once the Emperor Heaven Legion is established, after a few years, the Emperor Heaven Palace will be the place with the highest combat power in the promised city. I can see the laws of things." Author, Yitiao Xianyue. Chapter 375. At this moment, after hearing Lin An's words, the young man was obviously stunned for a moment, and then he immediately became excited. "Yes, I am willing." Lin An smiled slightly. "Go to the first floor of Dishan Palace and wait. Next." This process lasted for an unknown amount of time, until the sun set. Lin An rubbed his forehead, looking quite tired. He couldn't even remember how many people had awakened on this day. He only knew that there were many, many. He kept repeating the movements of his fingers, and even though Lin An had advanced cultivation, he felt that his fingers were a little stiff. He raised his eyes and looked ahead. There was still a long queue with no end in sight, as if the queue had not moved at all. Lin An couldn't help but feel dizzy. "That's it for today. I'm tired. Let's continue tomorrow." Beside him, Yi Zhan looked numb. He watched with his own eyes as Lin An awakened the destiny wheels for people one by one. He was shocked at first, but now, he is no longer surprised. He raised his hand, Yi Zhan mobilized his majestic spiritual power, and said loudly, "Today's awakening ceremony ends here and will continue tomorrow." Lin An looked at the man in front of him who showed regret and unwillingness, showed a hint of apology, and then turned around and returned to the Emperor Tiangong. The Emperor Tian Palace has a total of 33 floors. The top floor is now used as a bedroom, and the bottom floor is used as two halls, the inner hall and the outer hall. This was how it was designed when it was originally designed. The inner and outer halls are about the same area. There is a long corridor connecting the left and right sides. In the middle area of the long corridor, there are a total of 10 spiritual ladders. This spiritual ladder is an elevator that uses spiritual stones as its source of power. It was proposed by Lin En based on the modern elevator. After informing Yazan 3 days ago, Yazan still praised it. But now, the spiritual ladder has installed. At this moment, the outer hall was filled with all kinds of people. Some of them are nearly middle-aged, and some are just teenagers. Without exception, they are all members of the Emperor Tian Legion selected by Lin En. After this day, a total of 168 members were selected. Lin En also had some headaches about this. Fortunately, early in the morning, Lin En ordered Yi Zhan to find someone who could specialize in managing the house. Although they are gathered here at this moment, in fact, everyone has been assigned a room. Seeing more than 100 people standing chaotically in the hall, Lin En looked a little tired. I am tired today, so I won't say any more. I will only say 2 points today. First, the Imperial Heavenly Army belongs directly to me, Emperor Lin. To a certain extent, it is considered to be outside the Promised City. What you have to do is not to catch the thieves outside. That is what people outside have to do. The primary mission of the Emperor's Heavenly Army is to maintain the stability and harmony of mankind. Second, the Emperor's Heavenly Army is the Emperor's heart. One day he is the Emperor's Heavenly Army, and he will be the Emperor's Heavenly Army all his life. If anyone violates the military regulations, no matter who he is, he should be dealt with according to the military regulations. If anyone betrays the Emperor's Heavenly Army, he will be punished to the end of the world. Kill without mercy. Some words came out, and the expressions of more than 100 people were different. Lin En didn't look much, turned around and walked towards the spiritual ladder. Your life wheel has just awakened, remember to practice and understand it well. As soon as the words came out, Lin had disappeared into the hall and walked into the corridor. The remaining people suddenly started whispering. As night fell, Lin En sat on the bed, his face less tired. In Lin En's state, the so-called fatigue is nothing more than a trivial matter. Standing up and taking steps, Lin took one step forward. The space fluctuated, and Lin still quietly disappeared into the room. In an unknown alley, an ordinary tavern, there are 3 or 2 figures scattered on a few tables and chairs at the door. Emerging not far away, Lin slowly walked towards the tavern. By the time he reached the tavern, Lin En's appearance had changed slightly, and he seemed to have become a middle-aged man. Waiter, bring me a pot of soju and some side dishes. After shouting inside, Lin sat on an empty seat, looking like an ordinary drinker. Several people on the side glanced at Lin En and paid no attention to him, and continued to chat with interest. Hey, Mr. Lin D is really a rare divine man in the ages. How many life wheels have awakened throughout the whole day? What is this? Everyone can see this. Let me tell you, I have a friend who knows a lot about this. He told me that all the life wheels that Mr. Lin D has awakened are all top life wheels. They are all top-notch life wheels. This is amazing. How many great people will be created from this dash? The voices of the few people talking were neither too loud nor too quiet, and just fell into Lin's ears, so she could hear them clearly. And not only this table, but the other table next door were also talking about Lin En. Lin En's thoughts swept away, and more than half of the people in the entire Promised City were talking about this matter. My guest, the soju and side dishes you requested are here. The waiter shouted, came over with a tray, and placed the food and wine on the table one by one. Lin En poured a glass of wine and took a sip, with an inexplicable curve at the corner of his mouth. It seems, not bad. I don't know if this is good, if it's soju, or something else. The next day, Lin An still carried out the awakening ceremony. Although there was a lot of boredom and fatigue in it, looking at the hope in people's eyes, Lin An didn't have to endure the pain. And this kind of awakening actually lasted for 7 days. That afternoon, as the sun was setting, Lin An looked at the last person's heart-warming figure leaving and exhaled subconsciously. Finally done. Yi Zhan came over. Lord Lin, you've worked hard. Lin An smiled slightly, feeling quite good, as if his whole heart was relieved. Back to the first floor of the Emperor's palace, in the inner hall, there were 1,001 people gathered here. It was so crowded, people were standing next to each other, almost filling up all the gaps. Lin An came to the front, his expression showing a little solemnity. The awakening ceremony has come to an end. You 1,001 people are all the Emperor Tian Legion at this stage. However, these people are completely enough. What this Emperor wants is not small soldiers and crab generals, but sharp forces that can stand on their own. You have all just awakened your life wheel, so you can be said to be on the same starting line. If anyone is too far away from the average combat power of the Legion in the future, then you will not be worthy of staying in the Emperor Tian Legion. Starting tomorrow, I will put a small world for each of you. I believe that some people may have heard of the small world outside, but the ratio of the time flow rate in the small world I give you is 100 times that of the outside world, which is twice as high as that outside. This means that you practice for 100 days inside, and only 1 day has passed in the outside world, which is equivalent to your practice speed being 100 times faster. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I can see the laws of things. Author, Yitiao Xianyue. Chapter 376. Hiss 100 times. It's true or false, 100 times better. Originally, our talents are pretty good, and coupled with our speed 100 times, that scene. There were exclamations one after another, and the people in front of them all looked surprised, obviously surprised by Lin An's handiwork. Lin An looked indifferent. In addition, you will also have military pay. I will discuss this matter with the deputy commander, and he will send someone to pay it to you. The specific amount will be determined later. In short, you will be guaranteed in many aspects, but accordingly, you must also show qualifications worthy of this guarantee. I believe that at some point in the future, you will be more than just a legion of my emperor. And it is the ultimate power of all mankind. Perhaps you will have the opportunity to fight for the entire human race one day in the future. By then, you will be the heroes of mankind. After the words were spoken, many people couldn't help but feel excited, especially the boys and girls among them, whose eyes almost seemed to burst with flames. Lin An smiled lightly, but before that, you must put in 100% effort and practice hard. Within 7 days of Earth time, the person with the highest cultivation level will become the commander of the Emperor's heavenly army. In addition, at the beginning of each month, there will be a reselection, and after March, the regiment commander will be officially determined. At this point, Lin An waved his hand. Some of you have just awakened the life wheel, and some have been awakened for a few days. Tonight will be the last night for you to become familiar with the life wheel. Starting tomorrow, you will officially start. Enter the cultivation state. Disband. As soon as the words fell, a large group of people with different expressions suddenly dispersed and swarmed towards the spiritual ladders on both sides. Lin An watched them gradually leave, and then he breathed a sigh of relief, finally completing it for the time being. After completing the campaign for the army commander in 7 days, he can leave. As for the election again after that, he can just leave it to Yi Zhan. Looking up at the sky outside, the night had shrouded a little. Lin En thought for a moment, and space rippled under his feet, and then disappeared in one step. That's right, Lin found another unknown pub. Lin En now discovered that wine seemed to be a good thing. He didn't like it in the past, but now he began to discover the beauty of it. Another reason is that Lin En discovered that at this level, practicing blindly does not seem to be able to make rapid progress. On the contrary, feeling the outside world from time to time can sometimes have miraculous effects. This is the case with Xuanhuan's promotion a few days ago. So, after staying here for 7 days, Lin finally left. On the 32nd floor, in a room similar to an office. This office is extremely luxurious. Lin En is sitting at the desk. Opposite him is a beautiful girl who is in her 20s, the splendid period of her youth. Although this girl is as beautiful as a flower, she is not a vase, on the contrary, she is a rose with thorns. During the election, there were 3 people in the same realm as her, 3 grown men, but this girl just broke out of the siege with decisive and ruthless methods. Lan 11, after I leave, the Legion will be handed over to you. It is not easy to be a Legion commander. You can appoint some more captains below. It may be easier to manage. I won't ask too much about these things. You decide just fine. It seems that Mr. Lin Di trusts me quite a bit. Lan 11 is very happy. Lan 11 had a playful look on her face, like a girl next door. Lin En paused and explained, I just don't have time to take care of these trivial matters. If you have any problems that can't be solved while I'm away, you can go to the deputy commander and he will help you. The Emperor's army belongs directly to me, and its status is far beyond that of the armies outside. As the commander of the army, you are even more respected. This is not an exaggeration at all, so you can go to Yizhan for help. Lan 11 blinked her beautiful eyes, her autumn-like eyes showing a different kind of brilliance. It seems that there are many benefits to being under Lord Lin Di, and being the Legion commander of Lord Lin Di has even more benefits. I don't know how lucky people are to be closer to Mr. Lin Di. Lan 11 turned her beautiful eyes, half smiling, and suddenly revealed a hint of coquettishness in her originally clear eyes. Lin En couldn't help but be startled, and then his eyes became a little strange. This unspoken sound. I don't understand. I don't understand. Lin En was a little confused and thought inwardly. Thinking of Kimeng's words before leaving, she felt a chill down her back. If he really brings another one back, should he go home and kneel on the washboard? Lin En was ashamed and smiled bitterly, there is no luck in this matter. The 3 wives of this emperor all have some past connections with me. At that time, I was just a little warrior. Therefore, my 3 wives madam didn't choose me because of my cultivation. Lan 11 was suddenly shocked, 3. There are already 3. Lin En nodded with a smile, half smiling but not smiling. There was a hint of hidden resentment in Lan 11's beautiful eyes. It depends on Lord Lin's intention, except for the 3 sisters, I am afraid that no one will be so lucky in the future. Lin En couldn't help but twitch the corner of her mouth. 3 sisters, sister. After a few breaths passed, Lin En's face calmed down, maybe. Right now, you are the Legion commander for the time being, and there will be 3 elections in the future. You may be replaced at any time, so if you want to keep your position as Legion commander, you have to do a lot more. It's hard work. Lan 11 nodded solemnly and showed clear eyes again, like an innocent girl. Lan 11 will definitely work hard. Mr. Lin Di's army commander cannot be snatched away by others. Lin En didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Lan 11 was really a person who changed her mind at any time. Lin En had already investigated Lan 11's past identity. She came from a small tribe. Most of the people in the original tribe had died in the war. Only a few survived by chance and followed other tribes to the agreed place. Before that, Lan 11 was the daughter of a manager in the tribe. I guess Lan 11's attitude towards people and her style of doing things had a lot to do with the past. This is not only a cold rose with thorns, but also a smart and clever woman. Okay, I'm going back to heaven. I'll come to see your progress when I'm free. I hope you won't let me down. Lan 11's beautiful eyes turned to one side again, as if pitiful. Is Lord Linda leaving now? Lin An was worried again. It was really a disaster because of the beauty. Raising his hand and waving it, a space crack appeared beside him. Lin An stood up and stepped into it without saying anything. The crack disappeared quickly. Lan 11 stared at the crack in a daze for a moment, then walked to the window thoughtfully and looked at the scene below. In the face of the projected light and shadow, there was a calmness in Lan 11's beautiful eyes. I can see the laws of things. Author, Yitiao Xianyue. Chapter 377. 3 months passed quietly. For 3 months, Lin An spent most of his time at the top of the 9 Nether Realm, during which time he came back to Earth once. The development in the Juyu domain is getting better and better, and the strength of the fairy army and the Juyu guards is also increasing day by day. Especially the Juyu guards are making rapid progress. Among them, Helen actually had a hint of the God Emperor's fluctuations. Lin An was quite excited about this. As his army became stronger, the burden on him would be reduced. On this day, Lin came to the Earth again. Today, the Legion commander will complete the final campaign and be officially determined. The last time Lin An came, the second campaign had been completed, and the winner turned out to be Lan 11. I wonder what will happen in the next 2 times. The space fluctuated, and Lin An's figure suddenly appeared on the top floor of the Emperor Tiangong. Lin looked out at the familiar room, the comfortable big bed, and the panoramic floor-to-ceiling windows in all directions. The promised city outside the window is full of palace buildings, pavilions, and pavilions. At this glance, it seems that there is no end in sight. Lin An's thoughts swept across, and this promised city was so huge that it was unimaginable. It had a radius of hundreds of miles and was completely occupied. Such huge cities, even in the Juyu domain, were not very numerous. Yazan, this guy is quite capable. Lin An had a smile in his eyes. Such a huge city is still built in ancient times. It is really pleasing to the eyes to come here and stay for a while. You can bring King Ian and the others over for a walk when you have time. Lin An's smile grew even stronger. Gathering his thoughts again, Lin An discovered that none of the members of the Emperor Tian Legion were in his room, but all gathered on the first floor. Lin An's thoughts swept away and he discovered that the first floor had been changed. The area of the inner hall was much larger, while the outer hall was smaller. Come to think of it, this inner hall was specially designed for the Imperial Heavenly Army. After all, there were many Imperial Heavenly soldiers, and they were crowded into the inner hall during discussions, which was a bit crowded. But now that the inner hall has been improved, there will no longer be such a problem. At this moment, everyone is gathering together in the inner hall. In the corner of the inner hall, a high platform is being built here, like a stage in the 9 Nether Realm. On the high platform, Yizhan and Lan 11 stood on top, with 1,000 members below. Lin An found that these 1,000 people stood in an extremely orderly manner. At a glance, they seemed to be divided into 10 groups, with a slight distance between each group. In each group, one person stood at the front, and the remaining 99 people were divided into 3 columns and arranged neatly. The rules of the election were set by Mr. Lin Di. No one except Mr. Lin himself has the right to change them. Now, the last election has been completed, and everyone can see that the winner is still Lan 11. There were 4 elections in total, and Lan 11 won the first place every time. There is no doubt that Lan 11 has proven her qualifications as a Legion commander with her absolute strength. From now on, she will be your official Legion commander. Most of the 1,000 people below had the same expressions as they should. Although a few people looked a little unwilling, their eyes were sincere and sincere. No one could say anything because their skills were inferior to others. At this time, Lin An's figure emerged with a calm expression. Yi Zhan couldn't help being stunned, and immediately took a few steps back to give up the first place. Then he clasped his fists respectfully and said, "Master Lin Di, you are here." Lin An nodded lightly, while Lan 11's beautiful eyes lit up. "Lord Emperor Lin." Lin An smiled half-heartedly, unexpectedly, "You really did it, not bad. It's just a fluke." "Thank you Lord Lin for your compliment." Lan 11 spoke with a sly smile on her pretty face, but there were 1,000 team members watching below, so she didn't say anything outrageous. However, Lin An looked at Lan 11's expression and felt that she seemed to have other intentions. Lin An turned his head and looked at the 1,000 people below. After 3 months, the strength of these people had made great progress. Lin An discovered that the 10 groups of positions below seemed to be divided according to strength. The one on the far right has the highest strength, followed by those on the left. Many of the people on the far right have reached the level of world-class magic gods. Even the captain on the far right is actually a demigod. And Lan 11 next to Lin An is also a demigod. Seeing Lin An's gaze, Lan 11 explained from the side, "Lord Emperor Lin, these are the 10 teams that Lan 11 arranged for them, from the first level to the 10th level. The first level group is the highest and has the strongest strength. The strongest. In addition, their groups will also implement a rotation system, with 1 rotation per month, also lasting 3 months. Now, they have already conducted 2 rotations, and 1 more time will be finalized. Also, each group leader has 10 captains under his command. I leave this matter to the group leaders to make their own choices. I didn't ask too much." Lin An nodded, thinking that Lan 11 learned quite quickly. In order to save trouble, he let the people below do it by themselves. That's what he did, and now Lan 11 does the same. This method is feasible and does a good job. Immediately, Lin An looked down again. "Now, the army commander has been officially decided. You should all have seen the process. From now on, Lan 11 will be your supreme commander. You must always remember that the ultimate meaning of your existence is to protect the peace and stability of mankind. Now you have 2 demigods among you, and they are your role models. And Lan 11 and the first level team leader, above the demigod is the God Emperor, and above the God Emperor is the God Wilderness. Don't be complacent about your own strength. If the enemy comes, your past complacency will become your death warrant. The Emperor Tian army is the Emperor Tianxin. Remember, you are all the Emperor Tian army, but the Emperor Tian army living in the Emperor Tian palace, the Legion glory is unmatched." After speaking, Lin An exhaled lightly, and the 1,000 people below suddenly shouted in unison, "Emperor Tian glory! Emperor Tian glory!" The shouts in unison condensed unimaginable infectious power, and many members seemed to have something more in their eyes. Lin An smiled slightly, stepped back 2 steps and gave his position to Yi Zhan again. And Lan 11 looked at the members below with her beautiful eyes. She has been managing them for 3 months, so she naturally saw the changes in the eyes of the 1,000 people below, and she also knew more clearly what this change represented. This is the heart of the army, this is the soul of the army. In the past 3 months, she has improved most of the systems within the Ditian army and established unique reward and punishment measures, but she found that the effects of these things are not as good as Lin An's few words just now. I can see the laws of things. Author, Yitiao Xianyue. Chapter 378. Turning her head to look at Lin An's profile, Lan 11's expression was a little complicated. But with just a few words, he did what she had not been able to do for 3 months. Is this the charm of this man? Even she herself. More than half an hour later, the Emperor Tian army had dispersed and returned to the small worlds of each layer to continue practicing. Yi Zhan had also left, and he was busy with his own things. And Lan 11 followed Lin An to the 32nd floor. At this moment, Lan 11 happened to look at Lin An with a smile. "How about it, Lord Lin Lan 11 didn't disappoint you. Lin An also had some feelings. It was not an easy thing to win the first place 4 times in a row. You know, none of the 1,000 people selected by Lin An were mediocre. And she, a beautiful girl, has achieved such results. Lin An knows the hardships and perseverance in it. Thinking of this, even Lin An couldn't help but show admiration in his eyes. You are very good. Lan 11's beautiful eyes flashed a trace of cunning. Not only am I good, Lin Di, you have also seen that the people in our legion are very good. The weakest are all national level magic gods, and there are also many world-class magic gods. The first level team leaders are even on par with me. Fortunately, I have defeated him. Lord Lindy's legion leader must be mine. Speaking, Lan 11 seemed to be asking for credit. Lord Lindy, you don't have to worry about anything. Just a few words will make them excited. Before this, it was all me who urged them to practice actively. Alas, I am a legion leader with a miserable life. Lin An couldn't help laughing. This emperor also has his own life. What I can give them, besides resources and environment, is only to incite people. Could it be that you still expect this emperor to do everything himself? Lan 11 blinked her bright big eyes, and under the flickering long eyelashes, the moving eyeliner extended a few charming arcs. So, Lan 11 also learned from you and set up 10 groups. Since then, I have been much more relaxed and have a lot of time to practice. Otherwise, the position of the Legion leader would be really uncertain. Speaking of which, Lan 11's beautiful eyes flashed, and there was a little inquiry in her eyes. Lan 11 has reached the demigod now, but I found that you, Lin Di, are like the abyss, which looks even more terrifying. Lin Di, what level are you at? Lin An smiled, really want to know. Lan 11 suddenly seemed to be acting like a spoiled child, and even her voice became a little coquettish. I want to. Lin An was immediately overwhelmed. This emperor is Xuanhuan. It's really Xuanhuan. Lan 11's eyes widened a little, with a hint of amazement in his eyes. As if the ignorant are fearless, he didn't feel much when he looked at Lin An before, but now that he has reached the demigod, when he looks at Lin An again, he can feel a great pressure. Like an abyss, like a prison, as vast as the deep sea. When she first met Lin An, she had guessed that Lin An's realm should not be as simple as the Divine Emperor, but most likely above the Divine Emperor. Now that it has been confirmed, Lan 11 sighed. Thoughts flew, many thoughts flashed through her mind. Lan 11 blinked her eyes, and suddenly said, I wonder what kind of person can get the favor of Emperor Lin. Like a sigh, in the dark night, the long eyelashes fell, and a layer of shadow was cast under the eyelids. I have to say that Lan 11 is extremely beautiful. The black leather jacket and hot pants are decorated with dark purple patterns, and under the graceful curves, a pair of white and slender legs are exposed. Lin An felt that Lan 11 had even caught up with Ban Meng Chi Meng and the others. And the Lan 11 in front of her was even more cold and beautiful. The beauty is like a painting, and people still pity her. Lin An's heart almost skipped a beat, and his heart trembled, and then he looked out the window. The carved railings and jade bricks are magnificent, but they seem to be somewhat eclipsed at this moment. But who is Lin An, and how can Lan 11 imagine his mind? After a slight distraction, Lin An's eyes calmed down, and then he said lightly, this emperor has been maneuvering for countless years, and has seen too many talented men and beautiful women. After the vicissitudes of life, it is just a dry bone. Above the god of desolation is eternal. I wonder if it can really last forever. That is the path this emperor wants to pursue. Lan 11 couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, and suddenly a bold idea popped up in his heart. After a few breaths, Lan 11 said tentatively, if it is eternal, there is a chance. Lin An's expression paused, and he was quite helpless in his heart. He shook his head and said nothing more, and his figure disappeared in an instant. Lan 11 stared at Lin An's chair in a daze. and stood up after a moment. A trace of determination suddenly flashed in her charming eyes. Have you noticed that the current development speed of human beings is a little too fast? In the far north, in the divine court, a voice suddenly emerged around the dominant priest. The voice echoed lingeringly, but a hint of uneasiness could be heard in it. The owner of this voice seemed to be unable to hold back. The priest opened his eyes, and before he could speak, another voice came, "What the Void Lord said is true. The 100-mile city stands there, and we are all watching. Do the two monarchs have a good plan? Some humans have appeared in my destiny law god realm, and started to snatch resources and build strongholds. This is not a good sign." The priest's face remained unchanged, and he said, "Not only that, I also found that human practitioners are now as numerous as cattle hair. Everyone I saw, although their strengths are different, actually has a destiny wheel." The voice of the Void Lord came again, "That's right. I also found out, and they also appeared in my territory. Although it's just the edge now, I see that they have a tendency to expand 100 miles away." Hearing this, the immortal's voice was obviously a little unhappy. "Even if it's the edge, it's still our territory. Emperor Lin is really bullying us too much. The promised land of 1,000,000 miles is now expanding outward. This is simply a slap in our face." The priest sighed sadly, and there seemed to be some helplessness in his expression. "We are not as skilled as him." "What about people? Although some of the humans who came out are quite powerful, most of them are just minions. Even if there are some minor frictions, it is not a big deal. I think it is better not to make trouble." The Void Lord was immediately furious. "Then can we just sit back and do nothing? The day we don't speak, the power of Emperor Lin will expand. It is not important at the moment, but if it goes on like this, one day it will be out of control." The four people communicated with each other, and at this moment, there was suddenly a strange fluctuation, which faintly revealed a mysterious breath. Just a breath, it has made the four monarchs change color at the same time. A jumping clown, even if he jumps, he is still a clown after all. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I can see the laws of things. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 379. The voice carried a mysterious aura, and under the strange fluctuations, it seemed that a little will could be felt faintly. Just the aura had caused all the four monarchs to sweat coldly on their foreheads, as if their flesh and blood were trembling all over. This was an instinctive fear. The four monarchs had never felt such an aura before, and they all changed color at this moment. Soon, the northern priest spoke first. "I wonder which master is speaking." The strange aura did not dissipate, and soon, the voice came again, "We are just a few ants, and we are not qualified to know my existence. You just need to know that I can help you." The Void Lord narrowed his eyes slightly. "I wonder what kind of help you mean by helping us." The other three monarchs did not speak, but their eyes were rarely focused, and they were obviously thinking about this question. For the title of ants, the four monarchs chose to remain silent at the same time, as if calling them ants was a matter of course. "Haha. For example, this." A mysterious voice came, revealing two somewhat contemptuous laughs, and then a space fluctuation suddenly appeared in front of each of the four monarchs, and then a dark purple crystal suddenly appeared. The four monarchs were stunned, and their faces were moved. This amethyst has extremely rich spiritual fluctuations flowing on it, and there is an indescribable breath flowing on it, like a mysterious and inexplicable artistic conception. They have never seen this kind of thing, but they can feel it from it. It will have immeasurable benefits for their cultivation. With this thing, you should be invincible when you join forces. In addition, the life wheel of humans is also of great benefit to you. If you swallow some more life wheels, you can suppress Emperor Lin. After the mysterious voice finished speaking, the strange fluctuations disappeared, and the four monarchs all looked at the amethyst and fell into a little silence. Not long after, the voice of the Void Lord came first. Do you know who this person is? The voices that responded to him were all unknown. Have you ever heard of this thing? Another voice said he didn't know what was happening. After a long while, Lord Void took a deep breath and said, I've done this. People of this level will probably have to step into the godly wasteland at least. If we don't cooperate, we will be the first to suffer. The immortal immediately agreed, Lord Void is right. I stand on his side. Soon, the four monarchs seemed to have reached a consensus and ended the voice transmission, but only the northern priest still frowned, as if thinking about something. Time passed quietly. The time set by Lin En in the Juzhu domain was consistent with that on Earth. At this moment, it was snowing lightly outside, making the tip of the somewhat empty tree more lonely. Lin En looked out the window, and was rarely silent for a while, and then went downstairs. Downstairs, Ban Meng and Qi Meng were sitting on the sofa board, while Qing Yin was fiddling with something in the kitchen. Now King Yin has reached the level of God Emperor. Since the awakening of the Will of Life law, King Yin's attainments in the law of life have been advancing by leaps and bounds. Today, she has reached the level of God Emperor. However, she is still far from the level of time law, and has only reached the level of a national level God of law. Even so, King Yin is still the one with the highest cultivation among the three women. Banmen and Kimeng are still a little far from the level of God Emperor. Seeing Lin En coming down, Kimeng naturally came over and pulled Lin En's arm to sit on the sofa. Lin En followed with a smile. On the other side, Banmen also changed a little and took the initiative to come over. Lin En smiled and hugged the two girls on the left and right. At this time, King Yin came over with a fruit plate in her hand, which contained a large plate of fruit salad. Seeing Lin En coming down, Qing Meng suddenly became happy. Brother. Lin En smiled and nodded. During this period, Lin En's retreat lasted for quite a while. It had been 2 months since he last went downstairs. There is no time for cultivation. A spring and a summer are just a blink of an eye. However, King Yin obviously has not been practicing for that long, so she hasn't seen Lin En for a while. Now that she saw Lin En, she actually sat on Lin En's lap in front of the two people on her left and right. Lin En smiled helplessly and touched King Yin's head. Do you three want to go out and play with me? King Yin's beautiful eyes suddenly lit up. Play? Where to? Even Kimeng looked at Lin En with some surprise. Only Banmen still had that cold look. Lin En raised his hand and pointed downward. Go down, Earth. King Yin's beautiful eyes lit up again. Earth? Great. It's been a long time since the Kyushu domain was moved up. It's just right to go and see those ancient buildings you mentioned, brother. Kimeng also looked very interested. The three women were all modern people, and they were indeed curious about those ancient worlds. So, the four of them ate salad, and then Lin En waved his hand, and the space crack appeared. Emperor Tian Palace. In the huge bedroom, a space fluctuation suddenly appeared at this moment, and then 4 figures suddenly fell to the ground. Seeing such a huge and luxurious bedroom, the three women were obviously stunned. This is too beautiful. King Yin opened her beautiful eyes in a daze, and walked forward with a look of surprise. Kimeng was also surprised and inexplicable, obviously stimulated by the scene in front of her. Even Banmen, who was always cold and calm, opened her beautiful eyes wide at this moment. The three women quickly turned around in this huge bedroom. King Yin went to the big coffee table opposite, knelt on a soft chair made of unknown material, and looked at the stunning pavilions and towers outside the floor-to-ceiling window not far away with a shocked face. Kimeng walked into the translucent bathroom, and when she saw the big bathtub, her beautiful face showed a little obsession. After Banmen looked around, he walked to the spirit ladder and thought about something. Lin En smiled slightly, took 2 steps and sat on the exaggeratedly large bed, and then lay down with some relaxation. The dome that came into view was also translucent, a huge arc-shaped dome, and was also made of that special material. Even Lin En couldn't find any flaws in such a room. King Ian and the other two obviously fell in love with this room at once, like a girl entering a garden, looking around here and there, and finally snuggling on the bed, looking up at the sky above the dome. Lin En couldn't help but laugh, but didn't say anything to disturb them, and walked into the elevator alone. I can see the laws of things. Author, Yitiao Xuanhuan. Chapter 380. Arriving on the 31st floor, Lin walked to the service desk on the 31st floor. Except for the top 2 floors of the Emperor Tiangong, every other floor has a service desk, which was arranged by Yizhan. In the middle of the elevators on both sides, that is, in the center of the entire floor, there is a separate room. The small world that Lin arranged is in this room. The service desk is not far in front of this room. Every member who goes to the small world needs to do a simple registration at the service desk, so that he can know where each member is going. Lin En came to the service desk at this moment. The person here was a woman with low cultivation level. Check Lan 11's records. Is she in the small world? The woman was looking down at something at the moment. When she heard the voice, she couldn't help but raise her head. At this moment, she was almost stupid. Lin, Lord Emperor Lin. When Lin En awakened the will of life for all mankind, the woman was one of them. She was touched on the forehead by Lin En himself, so she was very familiar with Lin En's appearance and recognized her at a glance. Lin En looked calm, and then said, "Check it for me." "Yes, yes." The woman hurriedly opened the record and responded after a moment, "The Legion commander is currently in the small world. It has been more than a month since he entered." Lin nodded and turned to leave. After more than a month of quiet practice, he was almost catching up with him. Lan 11 really worked hard enough. But thinking about it, the number 1 person in the Emperor's heavenly army has almost the same talent. How could he achieve such an achievement if he didn't work hard? Arriving at the outer hall on the 1st floor, Lin En sent a message to Yizhan as soon as he came out of the spiritual ladder, "I am in the outer hall on the 1st floor of the Emperor Tiangong Palace." Lin En didn't know what Yizhan was doing, so he only heard Yizhan speak respectfully, "I understand, Mr. Lin Di, I'll come right over." Lin En went to the coffee table on the side of the outer hall. There are several sofas here, forming a loose circle, and a coffee table is placed in the middle, which looks like a good place to wait. Within a moment, Yizhan arrived in a hurry. Lin En saw from the floor-to-ceiling window that Yizhan was flying all the way. As soon as he saw Lin En, Yizhan hurried over and Lin En waved to Yizhan to sit down. Yizhan then sat down, and then said with a somewhat uneasy expression, "Lord Emperor Lin, recently, something happened outside." Lin En was suspicious in her heart. What else could happen in this world right now? "What happened?" Lin En said calmly. Yizhan seemed a little nervous. "That's it? A few days ago, I received news that someone mysteriously disappeared outside the Promised City. It wasn't just one person, it was an entire stronghold. We have sent many people to collect resources outside the Promised City to form strongholds. There are at least dozens of people in each stronghold, and there are even hundreds of people. However, without exception, every time they disappear, they are all from the same stronghold. I personally visited several strongholds and saw many signs of fighting at the scene. It is conceivable that something must have happened to them, and they may even be dead. I took this matter very seriously and immediately sent people to investigate. As a result, the people sent out either found nothing or never came back. I had no other choice, so I discussed it with the commander of the Emperor's army, and then sent out some teams. These teams also found nothing, and even one team of people also disappeared. Not long ago, a group of soldiers from the Emperor's heavenly army brought back the news. Without exception, all the people in this group were seriously injured. Even the captain, a world-class magic god, was seriously injured, and the injury was extremely serious. However, they rescued most of the people, and also brought back the news that those who attacked them were void demons. That is the power of the Void Lord. Lin An had been listening quietly, until he heard the words void demon. Lin An's brows couldn't help but have a wave of emotion. Where are the missing strongholds? Yi Zhan guessed Lin An's thoughts at once. It's all around, east, west, north and south. It's very possible that all four monarchs are involved in this matter. Lin's eyes suddenly narrowed slightly, with a lot of confusion in his heart. Who gave the four monarchs the courage to attack humans again? Could it be that they think that if other races are not allowed to appear within 100 miles, they can take action directly from 100 miles away? This is simply a joke. Or, is there something that makes them feel confident, but what could it be? Lin An's eyes flashed with a trace of undetectable murderous intent. One team of the Emperor's heavenly army was missing, and another team returned with serious injuries. The captain was even more seriously injured. Four monarchs, you are seeking death. Lin has never killed you all, but you are so shameless, so don't blame me for doing everything. Thinking of this, Lin An's eyes filled with evil spirits and he said coldly, besides this matter, is there anything else that happened during my absence? Yi Zhan felt a little awe-inspiring in his heart, obviously feeling the evil aura that Lin An had just flashed past. That's all. Lin stood up and said, I will handle this matter. After the words fell, Lin An still turned around and left, walking back to the elevator. Before even taking 2 steps, Lin An actually took 1 step forward. The space fluctuated, and his figure quietly disappeared and reappeared on the 31st floor. In the Emperor Heaven Palace, Lin An rarely used the law of space to cross the upper and lower levels. Obviously, this time, Lin An was really angry. The Emperor Heaven Army was his hard work and Lin An had high hopes for it. When something happened to the Emperor Heaven Army, how could Lin An not be angry? Quietly appearing in front of the service desk, the woman just now was wandering in the sky, and Lin An suddenly appeared, which scared her. Lin An's expression was a little indifferent, and his breath was a little cold. He said, wake up the Legion commander for me. In the small world, everyone has a special talisman, which is a small jade sign. The 2 signs are a pair, one in the user's hand and the other on the service desk. When there is an emergency to find them, just pour spiritual power into one of the talismans, and the other talisman will send a prompt. At this moment, hearing Lin An's words and the temperament that has obviously changed a little, the woman is also a little scared in her heart, and obviously sees that Lin An has something important to do. What a big deal it will be for Lord Lin Di. It has to be said that this is a big deal, and it concerns the life and death of many people. Soon, Lan 11, who received the prompt, opened the door of the room and walked out. When she saw Lin An standing in front of the service desk, her beautiful eyes lit up, but her face soon became serious. Obviously, as smart as she is, she already knows what is going to happen next.